from the 70s image that was so, to even Greg's point about the Bond villain and whatchamacallit, I forgot, where it's like every black person watching it is just, understanding like, okay, this is totally what white people think black people from the Caribbean are. It's the same thing with these villains. It's so over the top with how ridiculous that whatever they're after doesn't even matter. You just have someone out there for Clint Eastwood to shoot, and let's call it a day. Why do we even need a plot? Well, I don't even think we need a plot.
That was the tricky thing about picking from this period, actually. Like, it was kind of funny. Yeah. Because, I mean, the thing was, again, you're coming off of the 60s civil rights movement, assassinations of, everybody, and the Vietnam War. Everybody's very the good guys, the Vito Corleone and Popeye Doyle. They're the ones that are complex. The villains, if the movie even has one, aren't very complicated. You know what I mean? They're just like evil and bad, like Taxi Driver. Like Robert De Niro's character, so fucked up. You could make an argument that he is the villain of the story,
Absolutely.
But who's actually the bad guy? Harvey Keitel, who's just like a really generic city pimp. You know what I mean? Like, it actually is kind of tough. And yeah, that's true, what RaShawn's saying. Like, these villains are just kind of there to give Dirty Harry something to shoot.
And always needed, they always had to make them two-dimensional enough and bad enough that he had to shoot them. Like, there was just like you wanted him to, like, it was always an excuse for him literally whipping out the big gun. No symbology there.
Yeah.
And shooting them, right? It was just, that was always going to be the end of.
And it was him. It was him, and it was Charles Bronson was big in this period. Mm-hmm. So it was also Charles Bronson also.
Yeah.
Steve McQueen, I mean, he wasn't always a cop, but he was always playing the badass, the loner.
Yes. Yep.
It was totally changing what Burt Reynolds was doing at the time, because he went to Deliverance, right? Like,
right.
Fucking hell. That was some shit.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, like the main characters were so flawed that it was like, the villain didn't really matter. Like in The Godfather, does the villain really matter in The Godfather? No.
Nah.
The funny thing is, I've always
the main characters are the worst people.
Well, I always felt with Godfather and Taxi Driver that really, because they're anti-hero characters as the protagonists.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they are the protagonists. In Godfather, I always felt that technically the antagonist, the villain, would be the American government. First fascism and then American government. And then, in 2, he goes back to Italy. So, but in Godfather 2, so fascism and American government for both. But, and then a Taxi Driver, even though he breaks down, to me, it's obviously why we compare it to Joker. It's the establishment coming down on him. Therefore, that's the villain. It's all the messed up things in the world. And for Travis Bickle, that he sees the right way. He sees the path. He sees everything wrong with the world. And he's the one that's going to find the right path to it. And the same thing with, obviously, Joker. But to me, I've always felt like the villain was always so overarching to the point that it also made it ridiculous.
Well, no, but isn't that always what the psycho killer tells themselves? You know what I mean?
This is why Taxi Driver ends up basically becoming that to me.
Yeah, the psycho killers always tell themselves, oh, this world is so fucked up. I've got to do this. I've got to be the one to do it because nobody sees. If you were to, especially with today's sensibilities, but I mean, in general, you tell me that a dude's over here making fucking gun gadgets out of his wrestling, and he's just got all these.
Not you think. Not you.
Hey. All these fucking social issues. Like, no, I'm gonna say that someone needs to go ahead and corral him and get him all of the good drugs. that you can. Get him
Right.
all the good
Get
drugs.
him all the good drugs. Get him all.
And the thing, The Godfather, I mean, you could say, like, I don't know, there were a couple of gangsters that were his rivals at the time. But, you know, I like that RaShaun used the word anti-hero, because that's exactly it. Like, just because your anti-hero does the right thing at the end, I mean, Michael Corleone is just as big a piece of shit as any of the people that he had killed in that movie.
Of course.
So it does make it a tough watch and a little bit difficult to pick villains out of this period, because, I mean, it makes it easy in a way to pick the ones that suck, but because there were a ton of them, but at the same time, it was like, weren't the good guys the villains too?
Well, that was part of the zeitgeist of the time. Yeah. And that's why some of the ones that stand out here, and why actually, RaShaun, I thank you. I did go back and forth on a couple of Dirty Harry villains because of the exact reasons you pointed out.
I did too.
Yeah, because
there just wasn't much meat there, but I did too.
Yeah, there's so.
I love that we all wrote the same list separately.
Well, certainly we have crossover, but that brings me to going to Scorpio, going to Zodiac. That brings me to the Riddler, right?
Another Bond villain?
Another Batman villain, right? It's the only other Batman. I got two Batman villains on here, but it kind of is interesting because Batman, as I think I've told you, and anyone who will listen, Batman, one of my favorite heroes, right? This really interesting hero, but his villains tend to just kind of suck, right? You have some of the highest end and the lowest end, and we got the Riddler going back to. He's the guy who just won't shut the fuck up. And he thinks he's so clever, and he thinks he's so smart, and he puts out all the riddles in there, and Batman always fucking guesses them. I'm going to the Will Arnett Lego Batman, riddle me this, Batman. It's an icicle. How did you know it's always an icicle, right? Or whatever it is. Whatever the answer to, it's a dog. What? I haven't even said the riddle yet. It's always a dog. Whatever the answer is, he is the guy. And not by mistake, played once by Jim Carrey, who, in my opinion, the most accurate description of Jim Carrey's acting style is the Riddler himself. He is the guy in college standing by the keg, reciting the Monty Python skits at the top of his lungs all the time. Why? No one quite knows why. It's not cool. He thinks he's cool.
To be fair, with all of Batman's villains, it really does depend on which era you're talking about, who's the writer. And for the era that you're talking about, yeah, because it was still kind of a offshoot of Golden Age Batman and the Batman series from the 60s.
Right.
So, that is fair. The Riddler, actually a pretty cool villain.
Okay.
Most of the time. But for the period you're talking about, still bad.
It just,
I could toss my 2 cents in for the Riddler in the sense that I'm with you, but also to me, if I have a theme with all my picks, it's waste. And for me, I hated the fact that he, amongst, I think, most of the Batman villains, would always get Batman caught. And then that's it. How did you devise a plan so good that you got the guy caught, but then it comes out, as Josh points out, too, the worst freaking riddle where Batman might as well say icicle. I don't understand how did you get that far and still not get, I'd rather you just miss. Right, I'd rather you do a drive-by and just completely miss instead of having Batman completely held up in some cockamamie trap that you figured out and only you can figure out, and only you can get Batman to actually be stuck in this moment, only to have the whole kill shot be hinged on a really shitty fucking riddle.
To be fair,
again, burn the rope. You burned the rope? I didn't think he was going to do that. Oh, come on.
What do you mean?
The reason that the Riddler leaves a riddle, which is on the face of it the dumbest fucking thing. You're trying to get away from a crime. Why are you leaving a clue? Because you also have to remember these people are all mentally ill. Every one of them are insane. So the Riddler he was abused as a child.
Nah.
And one of the things that he was really severely beaten for would be lying. So in his psychotic mind, leaving a clue is his way of exactly of like pre-confessing to the crime. Like, I left you a clue, I left you this riddle, so I'm not really just trying to get away with it because I'm giving you the opportunity to catch me. Not a great excuse. Don't get me wrong. It sounds like you just shouldn't become a fucking villain because your ass is gonna leave clues. And who would join his gang? Like, why would you join? The motherfucker's gonna leave clues.
He's gonna tell you everything.
Why would you do that?
He's gonna tell you everything.
For the period you're talking about, yes, you're 100% right.
All right. Greg,
every henchman for the Riddler during that time had a conversation that probably went like this. Hey, did you hear what happened to Gary? Yeah, he got caught. Yeah.
Greg, rat it out. Get what you got. What you got next?
I think
We're
I did.
3.
How many did I do? I did like
we're on 2 or 4. We're on 3 right now.
We're on 3. No, because I did 2 villains.
Yeah,
I did
so we're on 3.
Yeah, I did 2 movie. I did 1 comic book.
Okay, that was my 4.
So I'm on 4.
Yeah, we're on 4.
I'm on 4. I think I was gonna go with the. Let me jump in with a book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Vogons.
Okay.
Yeah, they were fucking stupid. They were fucking stupid. So the premise of the Vogons was like they evolution just like gave up on them. And so they still managed somehow to like Frankenstein. They turned all of the things that evolution just gave up on with them into strengths. So they end up being this like these giant lizard-like lumps and just being really ugly and obnoxious. So because they don't have any sort of humanity or empathy or anything like that, they just kind of drone across the galaxy, just kind of renovating wherever they want to. And they started with Earth at the beginning of the story, if you remember.
Yeah, they clear it to make way for Space Highway.
Space Highway.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
There's not enough space in space.
Well, it's the irony that the main character's house.
So no, because it gets even better. Earth moves.
Well,
it moves.
Yes.
Right? So it moves, and there's not enough space in space. And these kind of details are the things that they're constantly getting caught up on. Yeah, if I had to do shit in the universe, I wouldn't go to these things.
That makes sense.
Right?
I mean, then you have to listen to Vogon poetry.
What's that?
You have to listen to Vogon poetry before you die.
And, it's like they say in the book, like, they're just, saying that they just talk about just how obnoxious they are. Like, it's a very British book. I'm not sure if the author,
yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very wry British book. But they're constantly saying just, the Vogons are just lumping, ignorant, and obnoxious. It's like, yeah, that's their only real character trait, if you think about it.
That is definitely the case.
Right. Yeah, they'd be my useless bastards.
All right, they're pretty. Well, when you come around to useless, and we've talked about Dirty Harry, we've talked about a few things. I'm going to bring the most useless future cop into it to finish my list off here. I got to go with Francis Five from Logan's Run.
Nice.
Well,
very good.
Once again, I'm assuming a certain familiarity with the piece here, but you're best friends with a cop that the city computer decides to send outside to catch other runners and other renegades, right? People who want to live past the age of 30. Apparently, the computer doesn't think you're competent enough to be let in on the plan. So let's just start with that. Right? We got to cut him out of this, and he's not going to know, and you got to run away, and you can't tell him anything. Okay, already That's what the artificial intelligence thinks of you. Then it decides to tell you that he's in on the plan or that he's getting away, and that when you figure out that after you've sent him outside the city, he probably